Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Many of you out there, are you ever curious about alligators? Do you ever find yourself standing by the edge of a pond and wondering, am I able to feed these things by hand? And what happens when they decide to feed on you, especially in a place known as the world of business? You could be a business owner, career professional, as well as an entrepreneur who are up to your neck in alligators, which apparently these things are a nuisance which prevents you from helping your mindset get to the level that you need to, especially leadership levels, so that you can reach your goals quicker with less stress and more success. All the frustrations of business and life can sometimes leave any of us feeling like we're in a proverbial alligator pit of too little time and way too much stress snapping at us. And it's not our fault. We often so stuck in the pit we can't see a way out. But there is. We can learn to wrestle our alligators, which is exactly what we're going to learn about today from what is known as the alligator wrestler, who helps high-achieving career professionals, business owners, and entrepreneurs just like you who seem to be up to their necks. So we're going to find out how we can achieve this, where we can reach our goals quicker with less stress and more success. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today somebody who's been able to do this. She is the co-author of the award-winning book, Many Trends. Her article, 7 Tips for Getting Out of the COVID-19 Alligator Pit, recently appeared in the prestigious Texas CEO magazine. She's also a popular speaker of being more self-aware, connected, as well as a visionary leader. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest and alligator wrestler, Carrie Vanston. Carrie, thank you for being on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Hi, Daniel. It's so nice to be back because you actually interviewed my father and I twice when we wrote Many Trends 5 years ago.
How about that? So alligators, that's a good way of looking at it when you think of analogies. How did you come up with a term like that?
Well, that is a great question. And actually, I'm the alligator wrangler, although I also wrestle alligators. What the heck?
Yeah, why not? They can be a lot of fun to wrestle, especially if they've been fed, right?
Great question on asking where the alligator wrangler came from. Let me back up a little bit. For several years, I worked for a company that did forecasting. And what we found was more and more people didn't just want to forecast the future, they actually wanted to create the future. So we came up with a list of best practices for finding small trends and turning them into big opportunities. And that led to the Many Trends book that you mentioned, which became won 2 Best Book Awards. And so we started doing consulting and programs and coaching, and we had a conference for 3 years that I directed around that. And it was really wonderful. But what I found over time was that people were often just stuck. You know, the companies didn't really encourage them to use their creativity, and they really had no means to use their creativity and their innovation ideas because the companies were so stuck in a fixed mindset of, just do it the way we've been doing it. So I started getting really passionate about helping the companies get by this, and I started working with corporate culture, and got really passionate about conscious capitalism, about how to engage the employees and all of this. And I just loved it. But what I found was that because the people had such fixed mindsets, especially the leaders had such fixed mindsets that, yes, I could engage them a little bit, but it wasn't sustainable. It was like putting Band-Aids on because the leadership really was kind of stuck in this fixed mindset of just do it the way it's been done before. And I found myself getting really frustrated because I couldn't help more. And I just got caught up in this inability to act on my own dream to help others achieve theirs. And I just started really getting frustrated and stressed out and stuck myself. And the more stressed I got, the less work I seemed to get, and the less money I made, the more drained and stressed I got. And I was just, oh, my gosh. And so I was looking for solutions for both myself and, the people I was. And I found a 9-month, 320-hour mindset and leadership coaching program and it just changed my life. By the end of the program, I just have techniques and methodologies to really intentionally change that stuck, fixed mindset to an energized growth mindset that just was full of opportunities and unexpected outcomes. And so I knew that the people I wanted to help didn't have 9 months to go through this. So I put together just a really strong 10-session leadership mindset success program that kind of used what I learned from the coaching program, but also my work with the innovation with the book and my culture experience with the organizations to really change the people's mindset from the core. And around that time, I had a small business owner come to me and say, Carrie, I just have this long list of to-dos, and things are just kind of like falling off the cracks. It's beginning to freak me out. I feel like I'm working all the time. My wife is upset with me because I never make it home for dinner. I struggle to inspire other people to follow my lead. Can you help me? I feel like I'm in an alligator pit. Can you help me? So I thought, alligator pit. Boy, that's the way I certainly felt during that period. But it's also the way I've often fall into alligator pits, just in, running my everyday life. It's just kind of a thing, especially with most of the people that are probably listening to this are entrepreneurs, have small businesses. You have a lot going on, and it's really easy to get caught up in these alligator pits and just run into a wall and you can't get through it. And it's not surprising because we have so many frustrations, expectations, and personalities snapping at us all the time. So anyway, I looked at this fellow and I said, heck yeah, I can get you out, keep you out, and help you move on. And I did. And that's when I became the alligator wrangler.
Now, let's talk about why people who, whether they go into business or, they're high career professionals, what happens where they get stuck in this mindset where they not necessarily refuse to change, but can't really see a reason to? Like you keep saying, I remember, and I've had this kind of encounter many times over the years, especially being in broadcasting where you're potentially approaching advertisers. Well, we're not going to do this. We're just going to kind of do things the way we have been doing them. And I'm thinking, but look, you're losing money doing it your way, and I'm trying to show you a way that you can really significantly cut your cost. For advertising, you can have a more unique reach. And, take a look at this. But for some reason, it's kind of like the proverbial person who's out swimming. The sun starts to go down, and all of a sudden they find themselves getting cold, realizing once they get out of the water, it's going to be really, really cold, so that fear keeps them in the water, thinking somehow the water's going to warm up.
Yes. Well, what we want to do is we want to help not only ourselves, but the other person energize their mindset. And when I say energize your mindset, the way we're wired is we have a thought, which leads to an action, we have a thought which leads to an emotion, which leads to an action. So if our thought is, I'm going to get back to what you're talking about, but let me explain this real quick. Like, for example, if we're talking about COVID, and we think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Things are, I'm going to lose my job. What am I doing with my kids home? What am I going to do when it opens up? Then your emotion is going to be fear, and your action is going to be maybe hide in the corner or go out and strike out at people. But if you can change that thought to something more like, oh, well, I'll get by, then your emotion was, okay, let's do this. And then your action is to go out there and do whatever you have to do. But if you can energize that thought and say, hey, wow, what opportunities are here? Well, how can I take advantage of this? Then your emotion becomes more of excitement, and then you can go out there and kick some butt. So the whole idea is to change that thought. So in the case that you're talking about, that other person is more the person who's stuck in the fixed mindset. So how can you help the other person so that you can create a win-win? Because we often think that compromise is good, but actually compromise is kind of, both persons are kind of losing a little bit. So in the case you're talking about, you kind of compromise and you kind of go with maybe something less than what you wanted to offer the person. And, the person doesn't really get the full advantage of what you were wanting to offer him. So, how do you change that thought of the other person so that, that you have that win-win? And you as a leader, and we're all leaders in one way or the other, whether we're leading our companies or our families or our communities or our faith centers, whatever, we're leaders, or whether we're just getting out of bed in the morning, for heaven's sakes. But the more that you as a leader can find out what the other person's win is and then frame your own win around that, that's the way that you can actually change the mindset. So in that case, to find out what the other person's, what their win is by asking curiosity questions. The way that, what really is the key to our hearts as people, we are wired to be cared about and be valued for our thoughts and our opinions. So being curious about the other person, and one way to do that is by asking open-ended questions. So what do you think about this? What are your thoughts around this? How would this help you? Can you kind of imagine how this might help you in the case you're talking about? And then really listening intuitively and not just listening what the person is saying, but kind of their tone of voice, what they're doing with their hands, their mannerisms, just the sense you get from them. So, for example, a subjective way of conversation listening would be, well, what do you think about? I have this really great idea. What do you think? And the other person says, I don't know about that. You say, oh yeah, let me tell you all the reasons. Which, you're pushing your ideas on them. While a second way of doing it, more objective way, would be, yeah, I've got this great idea. What do you think? And the person says, I don't know. And you say, tell me all the reasons why that this isn't working for you, so I can tell you the reasons why it is good. And this is better, of course, but if you can listen intuitively and say, yeah, I've got this great idea. What do you think? And the other person says, I don't know. Then you think, I'm kind of sensing that you've got kind of you feel uncomfortable with this. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What are your thoughts around what this might happen if you did do this? And these kind of questions kind of open up the conversation so that all of a sudden you can start, again, framing your win around what their win is, because you find out their win, and then it's much more easy to take that compromise energy and instead move it to win-win energy. And then when you have that win-win energy, then you connect to a higher intelligence, two or more people coming together, and you go on to that visionary. So that you might actually, in conversation with this fellow, you might actually learn from him some really great ideas on how not to be so stressed out because he's laid back and not interested. So how can you get him interested but also learn from him maybe something? But the more that, we really communicate on that level of being curious about the other person, the more we can really create those win-win situations. And in your case, maybe make the sale, or if not the sale, maybe the person says, you know what, I'm not really that into that, but, I think Fred over in communications department, he might be interested in that. Why don't you go talk to him? You never know. But until you really open up the conversation and let those thoughts and feelings and emotions and all of that stuff come out, the harder it is to really connect.
One of the things that as I was listening to talk about the implementing new ideas and sometimes the hesitation people will have when it comes to something like that, and I think, that's one of the arenas you really should be free to really explore that and see, how you can possibly make it work out. And again, you kind of have to help people sort of release that fear and actually be intrigued. Kind of follow the mystery because you never know where it's going to lead you. And I've seen, like in some cases, a lot of cases actually in my own world of business, is that I would have this idea and think, okay, let's go ahead and just go with this and see what happens. And it really becomes astonishing, and this is why I mean the mystery or that journey that we always hear about, because it'll take you in directions and things will crop up you couldn't have even imagined before. And have you found that to be the case when it comes to wrestling or, trying to subdue the alligators, as you say?
Oh, yes. Again, it's that when you create win-wins, then suddenly the flow starts happening because people are both getting something from it. And a lot of times we think, oh, well, we're going to help the other person. We're going to help the other person. Or, you're going to compromise. But even helping the other person, really the true magic happens when you're both gaining something, where you're both really experiencing, being curious about what you can learn about the other person and what the other person can learn about you. So, you really have that. It heightens the intelligence. It heightens the reality. It just, things just, miracles happen. What I really use in my own coaching and in my talks and my presentations and stuff is, like there's kind of 7 levels of energy. The bottom is kind of the fight and flight, and then it's compromise, and then it's helping, and then it's win-win, and then it's visionary, and then it's genius. So the more that you can bring those levels of energy up by really connecting with people and using some of these ways to energize your thought. And one that I was just talking about was, how do you interact for true win? But another way is by really, changing those, intentionally changing, those core thoughts from negative to positive. Like, for example, one of my clients had to, she got promoted within her business. It was a nonprofit, and she started having to be kind of like go out and network a lot. And she thought at first that she would love networking, but what she found was that she would often have to go out by herself. It would often be she wouldn't know anybody. It would often be in the evening, and she just found it so stressful. And she would just like go to these things, holding on to her steering wheel with her knuckles white. She'd walk in, and she just wanted to blend into the wallpaper because she was so stressed out. And then, the first moment she could, she'd be bolting out the door, and she wasn't doing her job. She was like completely stuck in an alligator pit because she was supposed to be connecting with people and making appointments and stuff. So one of the things we really looked at was her strengths in the past. Kind of looking at the past and saying what strengths do I have that I can bring to this situation now. And what she told me was, I know all of the resources in town. I know, I said, well, tell me one time that you really were successful and made some really great contacts. And she said, well, about a year or two ago, I was at a St. Patrick's Day party, and it was 8 people that were at the table, and there was a real funny centerpiece in the middle, and I was making funny comments about it, and everybody was laughing at the table, and it was just so fun. And that night I made 2 really important contacts. And I said, well, what was your strength in that circumstance? And she thought about it for a minute. And you know what her strength was? Her sense of humor.
Huh.
And it was like, yeah. And what do we lose before anything else is often our sense of humor. And that's kind of the magic of connecting with people. So, it's like if you can be thinking about, when you want to have this, energize your mindset, is really think about something in the past that was similar that you might use now to raise the energy around whatever you're going through. Like with COVID, one of my clients was really stuck because he'd been at home. He didn't know, especially worried about that everything opening up again. And I told him, well, when have you, I remember, last summer when your wife was stuck, not last summer, the summer before, when your wife was stuck at home, you was sick, you were stuck at home for 2 or 3 weeks, and you were really struggling. How, when that was over, how did you come out of it? It's like just looking at little things that maybe you had a strength in the past that you can kind of use now. To kind of help you. And actually, I'd love for your audience to really take a moment now and just kind of think about an alligator pit you're in right now, whether it's with the COVID opening up or whether, your kids are driving you crazy at home all the time or, your customers have slowed way down because of everything that's been going on or, you're scared of your health, whatever. And just kind of think about it for a second and just kind of think, well, how can I use that interacting for true win that I talked about? How can I maybe think of a strength I had in the past? And as we're talking, kind of be thinking about an alligator pit that you're in that you can use some of these ideas to get out of.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might have gotten off the subject whatever you asked me, so you can ask me again if you want. Hello?
Or when you were trying to clarify that, what was that like for you? When you were trying to clarify things such as passion, uniqueness, and impact?
Well, what was it like for me? Well, that is another really great way that we can really energize our mindset is because our whys are so important. As leaders, we really want to be clear about our whys. We want to, and 3 whys that you can kind of break it down to is why you're so passionate about what you're doing, why it's unique, and why it will make an amazing impact. And a kind of an example of this is a client that I was working with, Dave. He was wanting to develop a community cultural action center here in Austin, and it was going to include a lot of small businesses and a co-working space and a cafe and several other things. And he had actually come from kind of a corporate background, so he's kind of a do it my way kind of a guy. And so he kind of brought me in to help him kind of open that up and be more of a leader that more of a giving leadership model, and one that would bring people in instead of like trying to tell them what to do. And he's kind of a soft-spoken guy, so he kind of gets lost in the crowd sometimes as far as the networking goes. So the first thing we really worked on was his passion, and he had just noticed that people that seemed to be successful in this community, particularly millennials, just were kind of had a deep loneliness and kind of resisted formal religion, and he just felt really a passion for putting together a project to provide these ways for a deeper relationship. So this is what he really felt passionate about, this cultural action center. Secondly, we looked at why he thought that the project was unique. And he said, well, he was developing this really cool app that would match people at the center with nonprofit partners because he felt like millennials really wanted, they didn't have a lot of time for waiting around. They wanted to do something now. So if they were ready to do some volunteering, they could just, look at this kiosk that he envisioned in front of the center, and it would broadcast the volunteer opportunities right then, and then this real-time social good was just really unique and attractive to the millennials. So that was kind of his uniqueness. And then finally, we delved into the impact, and he just really felt that it would bring the community together and it just provide these great opportunities for people to have fun and learn and do good. And so, once he put these together, he started going out and saying, Solimar promotes joy, personal growth, and social good. And, just people would really feel his energy, and they'd be excited to know what he was doing and ask, how can we help you out? And so, he went from kind of being the guy in the corner who, wasn't sure exactly how to go about, this reaching out to really embracing the visionary role. And, the project is on schedule and moving forward. And, everybody listening can do the same thing. Think about what's your passion, what's your uniqueness, and what impact do you have? And when you're really clear about that, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, Daniel, the clearer you are about anything in your life, the more it resonates with people, and it puts your grounding, and people feel it, and they want that, and they will follow you, and you will be more of an influencer if you, and your mindset will also be energized, and your leadership mindset will be energized.
It's just really crazy sometimes to think about the different ways that you can find yourself stuck in a rut. But, how do you help? What was a couple of exercises you can share with our listeners where they can kind of explore these things that we're talking about today?
Sure. Well, one thing that I definitely suggest is write it down. by capturing what's really going on with us, our emotions, our fears, our dreams, studies show that, we can really channel and organize our thoughts quicker, and we're better able to see things in a more positive light than just getting caught in that low energy, that fight, freeze, flight energy. As a matter of fact, Professor Pennebaker at University of Texas has done a lot of research in this, and he found that expressive writing can actually improve physical health and work performance. So I definitely say write it down. Another thing that you can do is practice gratitude. I'm sure you hear a lot about this with your visitors, because it's with your interviewees, because it's so important. Because when we're thinking about gratitude, it crowds out the negative fixed mindset, and it leaves the opportunity for those great ideas and those opportunities and those unexpected outcomes that you were talking about earlier. How do you create those? Well, one of the ways is by really being creative. So I always suggest to my clients and my audience to write down like 3 to 10 gratefuls a day. And, if you've had a tough day, maybe change it into, I'm just thankful that I realized I'm feeling lousy, and I'm going to do something about it tomorrow. Or I'm going to write in my journal tonight, and then I'm going to take a walk tomorrow and get out there and really walk some of that off and get out into nature and really do something about it. Another thing that I suggest, especially now with things about to open up, is really work on yourself. There's a lot of assessments that you can do where you can learn about yourself. The Strength Finders, I think it's $20 to buy the book, and you can take the little assessment. There's a DISCs and other personalities, free versions online if you poke around and online. I have a leadership mindset assessment that I have that shows where you are in the different levels of energy. As a matter of fact, one of my clients who really changed the way he interacted with his people, he had a huge amount of visionary, but he also had a huge amount of compromise energy. So we really raised the energy by really being curious about his employees. He was having problems with his employees, and one of them was changing an app that he used. And, he called them in and said, instead of compromising, yelling at him and, conflict energy, instead he said, what was going on with him? He said, Carrie said that there's always a win-win. I'm going to bring him in. I'm going to try to do that. I said, what's going on with this client? Well, what do you want out of it? And the guy, rah, 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 rah. By the end of the conversation, the guy felt understood. He felt that, he was being listened to, and he calmed down, and Jeff actually learned something from it because it wasn't such a conflicting thing. The guy kept the client that he was, causing problems with, and it was just really a win-win all the way around. So, just that working on yourself. And in his case, I was talking about the assessment. What we did was we took the compromise and we turned it into win-win by being curious, asking open-ended questions, like I talked about earlier. Another thing is just celebrating. I mean, gosh, we have a lot going on, and a lot of times, gosh, I'll have something I need to do, and it takes me longer than I want. By the time I'm finished with it, I think, oh my God, I've got to move on to the next one. That took way too long. But instead, we really need to, we need to celebrate with our people, get on the Zoom, have a conversation, say yay, include our families now that right now a lot of us are at home. When my kids one of my kids got on the soccer team the other day. So, we went out and got a special meal, and we brought it home, and we celebrate, hey, you're a fella, good fella. So, and with your businesses too. And when you do have something, a win, whether it's small or big or medium, celebrate for yourself too. Buy yourself nice, turn on, celebrate, and dance around. It's like so important to, celebrate.
I agree with that. I remember years ago, one of my favorite authors when it comes to leadership, management, things like that, would be Ken Blanchard. And for those of who may not be familiar, he was the one that wrote The 1 Minute Manager, which is a fantastic book, quick read, that sort of a thing. But he was saying, as I was listening to him on a tape series, he says the biggest challenge that he sees a lot of times with people is they don't celebrate the little wins. They'll wait
Mm-hmm.
and hope they get the big win, but they never celebrate the little ones, because if they did, they would realize they have many more of those than they have of the big wins, and a lot of little wins become a big win because of the subtle transformation such as what you're talking about here today.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. There was a book by Rhonda, the lady who wrote The Secret. What's her last name? Rhonda. I can't remember her last name. But anyway, she wrote The Secret, but she also wrote a book called Magic. And in the Magic, she talked about money and about writing down your thankfuls about money, and that, think about money as not just cash, but think about it as, okay, I went out to the store today and there was a sale and I got an extra item for free. Okay, there's money. Okay, somebody gave me a birthday present. Okay, that's money. Write it down. My dad paid for dinner. Okay, that's $50. Write it down, and you start really thinking about abundance as true abundance, as opposed to just, someone giving you money. So, we have all these opportunities, that, we have all these things that happen to us that we don't really appreciate as being abundant. And the more we really become aware of it by writing down, by being grateful, by celebrating, the more we become aware of them, and then we attract more. And I'm sure you get a lot into the law of attraction, but with this. But, the more we attract more, because we have that abundant state of mind.
That's so true. And here's something that occurred to me while you were explaining that was, I'm sure many people listening out there in their business have been to places like a Chamber of Commerce meeting, where a bunch of people in the neighborhood who have different businesses, they'll come together for a meeting, get to know each other, describe what it is they do, and then pretty much not really saying it, but subtly saying, I'd like to have a sale. I'd like to get money into my business, And so that seems to be their focus, rather than shifting it and saying, how can I help whoever is here with what I know, whether it's me, my talents and skills, or someone that I know, and help them solve their problems without really looking to take them on as a client or a customer. And it's really interesting that people have that kind of a mindset going into these meetings without thinking, how do I solve problems here? What can I do? Rather than looking for a client. Do you suggest that to people sometimes?
Well, I think that it's kind of about being heart-centered in your sales, because I know I had a real hard time with, I would just not follow up with people because I felt so salesy. I felt like, well, if I call them, they're just going to be thinking I'm selling them something. And I think when you look at it as more as, how can we find ways to find out more about each other, to see if we can mutually help each other. And especially as a leader, if you can start the conversation and find out what, again, this win-win, what they need and what they want, then you can see if you fit that. And if you can fit that, and a more heart-centered way to do it is to say, oh, well, it sounds like maybe I can help you with that. Would you like to know more about what I do? As opposed to kind of like going through those 7 steps of, okay, this is the first step. I'm supposed to open them up, and then I'm supposed to butter them up, and then I'm supposed to do this. I get caught in that, and I just feel frozen. The fixed mindset pops in. Well, if I feel more like, okay, what's going on with them? What's going on with me? How can maybe I fit into this? And how can maybe they do something for me, and vice versa. Maybe they can do something for me. The more we can kind of keep that conversation open, the less it feels like that salesy type thing. So I think you make a really good point there. I totally agree that, you don't want to get so deep into helping others, because really your point is to connect with the right people so that you can help the people, what we feel passionate, again, most of the people on there, I believe, are entrepreneurs and businesses that, really their passion is to help the other person. So, but their passion is also to do what they want to do. They feel passionate about something and they want to help other people appreciate that or experience that or whatever. So it's very much a passion thing. So if the other person isn't really interested, maybe they might know somebody else who's interested or, whatever. But we don't want to give away what we're passionate about, because then we won't be able to do it anymore. So it's very much of, okay, is this person a good fit for me? And if not, do they know somebody? And if they don't, well, then it's okay to move on. But to open up that conversation a little bit so that it feels more comfortable and not like you're trying to shove something down somebody's throat or whatever. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. The world of business is really interesting. When you think of when we decide to get into it, whether it's for ourselves or, the career goals, we seem to have this imprinting about the way we were told it was supposed to be versus the way it actually is. And I think that if people can center themselves more in the moment as it is, they'll see not only ideas they probably didn't see before. It's funny, if you would agree with us, how the solution always seems to be right in front of us. We feel we need to look beyond that.
Yeah, and I think a part of it is coming into it, feeling that there's a win-win. Like the example that I gave you, Jeff, he had always, okay, this guy's going to come in and I've got to figure out a way to make him do what I want him to do, which is stop using that app and stop being a pain in the butt. And instead, he intentionally, because we've been working together, he intentionally said, no, there's a win-win here. Carrie says there's a win-win. I'm going to find it. And so he brought him in with that in mind, and he kept on asking questions to see where the guy is, and how he could, he could figure out the situation in a way that could be win-win. And even if he fails, which, you always have to go in thinking that you're not going to, you're going to be in a better position than, stressing yourself out and having that conflict, because the conflict really, it doesn't, the conflicted, the not engaging, being conflicted is what really leads a lot of that stress that gets us stuck in the first place, where we just keep pounding against something and we never get through. While at least if you understand what's going on, then you have a much better chance of moving past it.
Wow. It's been a really fascinating conversation when it comes to trying to learn how to wrestle with alligators, and I'm curious where people can find out more about your work. I know that you probably do have things like workshops and things like that, but how they can find out more about your work and things like that.
Sure. I have a website, thealligatorwrangler.com. I have a YouTube channel, and you can reach me by, which is Carrie Vanston. I'll go ahead and tell you my email, which that will spell out my name, which is also my YouTube channel, and also can be gotten hold of with my website, Carrie, Carrie, at Carrie, Carrie, Vanston, V as in Victor, ANSTON.com, VANSTON.com. If your audience is interested, I'd be happy to send them 12 quick and dirty ways to get out of the alligator pit.
There you go.
Love to do that. And if they have a alligator pit that they were thinking about, hopefully, they'll take some of the things we talked about and apply those. If they would like to have a free 30-minute coaching session around an alligator pit that they might be in, they can set up an appointment for me for a quick coaching session. What is my here? I'll give you the email for that. Where is it? It is followupwithcarrie.com. That's a Zoom half-hour coaching session. Follow up with Carrie. I just made that to make it really easy.
There you go. Followupwithcarrie.com. Yeah. Fantastic.
So anyway, those are, and then also the assessment that I give, the assessment and program mindset, leadership mindset success assessment and program. It's a 10-session program that just goes into how to think differently, interact differently, and lead differently. And then the assessment shows where you are under several levels of stress and under normal circumstances, and then we really work to bring that up. So those are a couple of things that I do that I would really love for that could really help people change the way their mindset. is. And then, of course, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can look me up on LinkedIn or Facebook. I'd love to hear from your people.
Very good. Well, Carrie, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program, and best wishes to helping people get out of the alligator pit.
Great. Well, I leave you with intentionally energizing your mindset. You will change your life and business to the positive, and then you can say, see you later, alligator.
There you go. Thanks again, Carrie, for being on the program today.
Thank you, Daniel. You've been wonderful. Bye-bye.
We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for joining us. Once you get out of that alligator pit, you can visit us over at beyond50radio.com. Discover more by signing up for our weekly e-newsletter and stay up to date with what's going on in the world of Beyond 50 as well as our upcoming shows. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. And remember, wherever you are is where you should be. Have a great day.